Can we start with the salawat, please? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, very quickly, we're going to go through this, these focuses. You know, the introduction to journaling, you've done the color directory, we've done the Qur'an city map, maybe we'll go over it at some point. The road network is M14. This thing you should know every time you open the Qur'an, yes? Walzam qalbi bihifthi kitabika kama allamtani, alhamdulillah. All right, let's look at some focuses. Surah Al-Fatiha, quickly. Summary of the Qur'an. Baqarah, history of faith. Come on, you got to know it. Surah Al-Imran, Muslim identity. Nisa, manifestation. And you should also know that the manifestation of a Muslim society is respect for women. Okay. Ma'idah, perfection of religion. Oh, come on, you got to know this. It's got to come out of your, ears like so quickly. Right, next one. An'am, practicalities of Tawheed. And you also found people made up their own rules. Right, A'raf, rejecting divine guidance. Okay, Anfal, attributes of, oh come on, really? Attributes of believers. Tawbah, hypocrisy, right? You saw hypocrisy coming out. So that was exposed. Right, 10, now you should know Yunus. It's never too late. Now, last week's, at least, that much you should know. Basics of faith and lessons from past prophets. This is a phenomenal story, Yusuf. So I'm going to tell it like a story because that's what Allah says, okay? So we're going to tell it like a story, but the focus of Yusuf is tawakkul in Allah, trust in Allah. And remember, this is somebody who's been kidnapped, betrayed by those that loved him a lot. There's a lot of passion involved. In the name of love, so many things were done. In the name of lust, so much was done. Put into prison, wrongfully taken out. But at the end of the day, he did become the king of Egypt. And we'll talk about it to the end. So I'm going to tell it like a story. We're going to start off with Surah Yusuf, Ayah 3. So if you turn to your Qur'ans, and you've got two lots of stickers. You've got one shirt. I needed that shirt. I added it on at the last minute. But that shirt is literally the 7th shirt. So you should have 7 shirts, okay? So let's start with this. And I'm going to tell it like a story. I've sort of written it out like a story. Let's see how far we get. Let's find my story. All right, so first of all, you've got to know, you know Prophet Ibrahim. You all know him, yes? Prophet Ibrahim had 2 sons. What were their names? Ismail and Ishaq. Now we're going to talk about Prophet Ishaq. So Ishaq had a son, and his son was named Yaqub. So Yaqub is Ishaq's son. When Ishaq is on his deathbed, he gives Yaqub something to wear around his neck. Now, let's go through some hadiths. It says it was the shirt of Prophet Ibrahim. It could be a bit of the shirt because it was put inside like a tawiz. And you can't wear a big shirt like a tawiz. They didn't have the ability to, constrict them into something small. So a bit of the shirt, okay? Now, Yaqub marries somebody called, the English name is Leah, but the Arabic name is Laya. That's whom Yaqub marries. And Yaqub has 6 sons from that marriage. When Laya dies, he marries her sister. And her sister is known as Rahil. The English word is Rachel. Rachel has 2 sons, or Rahil has 2 sons, Yusuf and Binyamin. Are you good? You know Ibrahim, what was his son's name? Ishaq, and then Yaqub, and then Yaqub has these, and he has 10 sons. There are some hadiths that say that he married some of his slave girls, and he had some more sons as well. Are we good? You good with that? You know that history. Okay, that's sort of a little bit of history on there. So if you look at Yaqub, he's got lots of wealth, he's got a large family, he's well respected in society. Okay? 10 sons is a lot. Okay? So that's what he has. Okay. So now let's look at 12:3. Nahnu nakussu alayka ahsan al-qasas. We're going to tell you a really cute story. Bima awhayna ilayka, and we reveal to you in this Qur'an. Now, qassa, and you could write it down in your books. Qassa is to trace footsteps. Qissa is when something is passed down from generation to generation. You know, stories are passed down from grandmother to mother to whatever, and it goes and that's called a qissa. He tells you, I will tell you the best of stories. Now this surah is part of the Ra'ad. I forgot to tell you. You also know it starts with Alif Lam Ra, and every time something starts with Alif Lam Ra, you will see it is about the Qur'an. That's just an extra bit. But qissa, again I go, qassa, footsteps. Qissa, something passed down from generation to generation. So he's telling you, tell you the best of stories. The nearest in the Qur'an you will get a story of is Surah Taha, where he talks about Musa. So Yusuf actually tells you the whole story of Prophet Yusuf. Normally you'll find in the Qur'an, when it's talking about someone, it's spread over a few surahs. Okay, Musa is as well, but here Yusuf will find in the whole one. So here we go, 12:4. So one morning, his son wakes up. Could be 9, could be 12. Comes to his father and he says, Ya abati. And remember, that is a way of respect. He says, oh my father, I had a dream. I saw 11 stars and I saw the sun and I saw the moon. Ra'aytahum li sajidin. And I saw them do sajda to me. He was a smart kid. He knew what was there. And so was his father. His father was a prophet. And his father thinks, oh my goodness. He knows all the other sons have got issues with these two because these two were good-mannered. Now, we all have children, and there are some children you veer towards. You don't want to tell anyone. Don't. Because God forbid you say, you're my favorite. Oh my goodness. Okay, you can't do that. So here, Yaqub thinks, oh God, you know, if he's going to tell this to the other children, they will catch on and they'll think, oh my goodness, what does he think of himself? So he takes that vial out, you know, that tawiz, in other words, and he gives the tawiz to Yusuf. And from that day on, he is a little bit more protective over Yusuf and Binyamin. And the others don't like it at all. And they say amongst themselves, this is not working. He's favoring those two a bit more. And remember, different mother. So he's favoring them a bit more. And they get a little bit funky about that. So they say, we're going to kill him. We're just going to get rid of him. Now, you might think that's something that people don't do. Let me tell you, when my children were younger, obviously there were less bedrooms in the house, right? Let's give you an example. So one day we went to pick up Jabir, to pick up all the girls, and then went to pick up Jabir. And when we went to pick him up, he wasn't at school. He'd started walking. And one of my daughters said, just leave him, Mama, at least I can have his bedroom. So it's not something, because children don't think that way. They think a bit different. So here they're saying, let's get rid of him. It'll become a little easier for us if we do that. Yusuf was happy. Because suddenly his brothers were telling the father, please, we want him to come out and play with us. And he never played with him. They bullied him. They left him alone. So he was really good. He thought, oh my goodness, they're going to take me out. Didn't know what they were going to do. So when they took him out, one of them felt a little bit bad. And I'll tell you exactly who he was. So his name was Levi or Lawi. Lawi, you can remember lava, okay? So Lawi said, I don't want to kill him. You know, suddenly he got the jitters. And he said, let's put him in the well. قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. One of them, Lawi, said, لَا تَقْتُلُ Yusuf. Let's not kill him. وَالْقُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ. Let's put him in the well. يَلْتَقِطْهُ بَعْضُ السَّيَّارَةِ إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ. And maybe somebody might pick him up because he didn't want to kill him. You good with that? Okay. So there's Yusuf inside this well. Now your first shirt should come in ayah 10 there, the well and the shirt. You know you've got an extra shirt, right? You're going to have 7 shirts. 7 times the shirt is mentioned. And I need you to know 7 shirts. Are you good with that? 7 days a week and 7 shirts. Okay. Right. Now we're going to go to ayah 15. So he's down in this well. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. First of all, before they put him, they tell him, take off your shirt. He said, please don't put me in the well. Take off your shirt. No, I don't want to take off my shirt. It'll be cold. If you don't take off your shirt, we'll kill you. So he takes off his shirt. That's why you have ayah 10, you have the shirt. Okay? So he takes off his shirt. And he's put into the well, and he swims to the edge. Now, if you imagine a well which has a little bit of a ledge on it, and he climbs on top of the ledge, and his first dua is, Ya Rabbal Ibrahim wa Ishaq wa Yaqub, have rahmah on me. I really don't know what to do here. Okay? So Jibreel comes up to him and says, well, it's okay. It's all right. I will teach you a dua that will help you come off it. And also, if you look at ayah 15, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. You will come to a place whereby, by the way, that is ayah 15. Yeah, you got it here. So you will come to a place where one day they will realize what wrong they've done. Now the dua has been sent to your groups. It's on your phones, okay? I don't think it's here, but it's on your phones. You got it? That's the dua of Prophet Yusuf. He says, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi anna lakal hamda kulluhu. Have you got it? I've sent it on your groups, right? You've got it there. And la ilaha illa antal hannan wal mannan badi as-samawati wal ardh dhul jalali wal ikram salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, and then waj'alli min amri farajan wa makhrajan warzuqni min haythu ahtasib wa min haythu la ahtasib. Please memorize that dua. It's a dua when you're desperate. You can imagine him put in the well by the very people who were supposed to protect him, and they didn't. You good with that dua? Because that dua will come again and again. Okay? All right. So that's his dua. And Jibreel tells him, don't worry. One day they will realize what they've done. Now again, that is your first trust in Allah. Bit shaky, but it's there. Okay? So, meanwhile, they take the shirt, they put sheep's blood on it, and they take it to Yaqub. And they say, you know what? We left him looking after our things, and when we went there, we just saw the shirt. That means he's been eaten by a wolf. Yaqub is upset. But when he smells the shirt, he cannot smell Yusuf. So he tells them, but I can't smell Yusuf in this shirt. And I'd like you to remember ayah 18, okay? So he can't smell Yusuf, so he then composes himself and he says three things. بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. Your souls have tricked you. Right? So you yourself have told lies to yourself. And then he tell them, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. Perseverance and patience is beautiful. وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانِ. Allah will help me. You say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Whenever you're in trouble and you don't know what to do, Wallahul Musta'an, please underline it. Do what you want with it, but say it 100 times, 1,000 times, 700 pounds, 800 times, whatever. Whenever you can, Wallahul Musta'an. Because if you can imagine, you know, I don't know about you, but even when I hear about Madeleine McCann, you probably all know her because it was quite a high-profile thing. Even the name Madeleine comes up, my heart misses a beat. Whatever people say, there's a parents who have lost a child. Yaqub has lost his child. A child that was so close to him. A child's been kidnapped. And his sons, his very sons, are telling him a lie, and he knows that. Because he says, Wallahul Musta'an ala ma tasifun. Allah will help me against what you make up. When you find people are making stories against you, when you find you just can't stand your ground, Wallahul Musta'an. Okay, so now what happens? So now in between there and here, what happens? These people want some water from the well, and they take it out. The whole story is in the Qur'an, okay? So when they're trying to take out water, from this bucket comes Yusuf. And they think, oh my goodness, a young man, a young boy. So they go to the slave market and they want to sell him quickly because he doesn't belong to them. He's kidnapped. So the first person that comes is the Aziz of Egypt. When I say Aziz, Aziz means a minister. One of the ministers of Egypt comes, and he comes there and he buys him for 20 silver pieces. Ayah number 20. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ. They sold him for a very, look at your Qur'ans, they sold him for a very small price, okay? So 18 days later, in the slave market, he's sold. By the way, you'll see 18 come up a lot of times. Are you good with that? Right. So he's a politician. He spends a lot of time out of the house. He doesn't give his wife a lot of attention, and she's always complaining. You're always out. Emotionally, she doesn't have anybody to connect with. So he takes this child to her, and he thinks maybe this child will fill the gap because she doesn't have any children. They're lacking children. And she doesn't know where to put, there's an emotional void in her, and he thinks maybe Yusuf will fill that void. She raises Yusuf like her own child. This is Zuleika. Okay? But when he turns 18, one day, she wakes up and she looks at him and she says, "Oh my goodness, he's really attractive." Now, it's not just attractive physically, but remember, he was the person who listened to her, who understood her, who grew up with her. Okay, so before we start thinking of anything else, this is where he was. So what she does, I'll move up a bit now. So what she does is one day she sends all the servants out, and she tells him, "Hey talak." Can you see that? Let's have a look, okay? So here we go, ayah number 23. It says, وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. Come to me. She's very attractive and she has a lot of money. But when she says, "Come to me," the first thing she does is she takes a piece of cloth and she covers the idol in her room. And he says, "Ma'adha Allah, innahu Rabbi ahsanu mathwaya, innahu la yuflihu dhalimun." This is ayah 23. He asks her, "Why did you cover that?" She says, "I don't want my God to see what I'm going to do next." So he says, "I cannot cover the eyes of my God. I can't do that. It's just unbelievable, not good to do." And she locks the door. Now they both run to the door. If you look at Qur'an, it says, وَاسْتَبَكَ الْبَابَ. Both. وَقَدَّتْ كَمِيسَهُ مِنْ دُورٍ. And she pulls him back. And when she pulls him back, his shirt tears. You probably know the story. Okay, so the shirt tears. So your next shirt, you know where it's going, yes? If you want. Anyway, so she tears the shirt, and he opens the door, and guess who's at the door? Her husband. But listen to this very carefully. So they meet the husband, and she doesn't even think. In a moment she says, "What is the punishment of someone who is trying to take advantage of your wife?" It wasn't even a thinking process, okay? And he's somebody who is watching. Allah doesn't mention who. Some ahadith says a baby. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It could be anyone. I'm not going to go through this baby thing. So somebody said, it's quite simple. If the shirt is torn from the back, it's her fault. If it's torn from the front, it's his fault. I mean, it's common sense. That's what they said. Okay. Now, this is, by the way, this is 1227. You've got it written there. And he saw that the shirt was torn from the back. By the way, you can stick the shirts in when he wants. Look what he says. He says, these are women, no ramana sosukare. So women who have nothing to do, this is the sort of thing they conjure up. That's not a normal reaction. He's a politician. Look what he says. Yusuf, Aridan Haza, just forget this. Forget this ever happened. And Zuleika, go ask for forgiveness. You know, you've done wrong. A normal human being would not have that sort of reaction. But he's a politician. All he's worried about is the scandal that's going to happen and whether he's going to be involved. So he wants to just brush it under the carpet. Can you see today's politics? Okay, so when you look at Surah Yusuf, you can see that's not the normal reaction of a husband who loves his wife. He said, "Oh, forget about it. It's all right. It's things that happen. You know, it's just gone nuts. Maybe it's the hormones." Okay. So now what happens is that there are witnesses there. Remember, this is a massive household. So these witnesses gossip. You know how gossip happens, don't you? You've been to Stanmore before. All right. So people say things. They say things that you don't even know. Oh my goodness, really? Did I do that? So these are the things that happen. So the gossip happened, and the women of high society started saying, oh my goodness, she's so desperate that she now wants to go after a servant. So she invites them all for lunch. Now, you know, if you want to know gossip and the person you're talking about invites you for lunch, you will go. You will take a day off work and you will go. So they all went. Now you imagine all of them sitting down and they're all gossiping about her, but she has a plan. So she serves beautiful food, but for dessert she serves fruit and she gives them all a paring knife. Okay? And then she calls Yusuf. She says, Yusuf, can you come? Because he's the servant of the house. I've forgotten something. And when they see Yusuf, do you know what they say? Here, look at ayah 20, I think it's 25. No, not 25, it's ayah 31. Let's have a look at it. What do they say? Please look at your Qur'ans. They say, Hasha lillah. Did you see that? Hasha lillah means, literally in brackets, put OMG. Oh my God. They see this guy and they say, oh my God, ma hadha bashar, this is not a human being. Inna hadha illa malakun kareem, this is an angel. And now, if you thought each of them cut their hands, because that's what you thought, didn't you? Every single person, they cut their hands. But if you look at Quran, it says, Qatta'na, they kept on cutting. So one of the things the scholars tell you is that one of them cut her hands, and Yusuf applied a bandage, and they all thought, we want him to apply a bandage. So they all cut their hands. Do you understand? They didn't all cut their hands together. No. Can you imagine everybody cutting their hands? But if he put a bandage on one hand, the other said, we want him to put a bandage on us too. Sorry? Yeah, don't look at the English translation. Don't look at the English translations. So if one or two cut their hands, or two or three, not all of them cut them at the same time. But when they saw he was bandaging them, they wanted him to bandage them as well. Okay, you don't see that? Because you're looking at somebody who is like, the nur is coming out of him from inside. It's not just a physical attraction. It's like everything all together, okay? Are you good? And the reason why we put an orange there is because you need a knife for an orange. Yes? Could have put an apple there. All right. Let's look at 1233. So now he's stuck. I mean, he thought he got rid of Zulekha. Because he thought, okay, Zulekha is away. Now he's got all these women going, oh my goodness. And they all want him. Can you see how difficult it must be? Oh, you can't. Okay, it's quite difficult, okay? So he says, Rabbi Sijni, ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani. You know what? I'd rather just go to prison. I can't handle this. Wa illa tasrif anni kaydahunna. Because all these women, one woman plotting got me into trouble. Can you imagine a whole bunch of them plotting against me? That's just not happening. So now what these women did was they lobbied their husbands, because she told them, tell me, if he wanted me, how could I resist him? You couldn't resist him. So they said the best thing for us to do is to get him out of the way into prison, otherwise he's going to bother all of us. They wanted it, but they just didn't want to say it. Are you good? Okay, so they lobbied their husbands and he's put into prison, okay. They didn't realize this is what he wanted too. Okay, now what happens? So now into this prison, in the prison, he talks about Allah, just generally. He tells all of them about Allah. And they also realize that he is able to interpret dreams. So then two people come to him, and one of them says, you know what? I see myself pressing wine, as in pressing grapes. Okay? And the other one says that I saw myself with birds on my head and the birds were eating the bread. Tell me, Yusuf, what does that mean? So he tells the one who sees the birds on his head, I'm so sorry, you're going to be executed. You better think about what you wanted, your last wishes, think about what you want to do. And to the other one he said, you're going to be freed. So same thing happens. The baker, the one who saw the birds eating, is executed. But the other one, he says, don't forget me. Remember me when you talk to the king. Tell him who I am. Tell him what happened to me. Anyway, that doesn't happen. So basically, the guy forgets. Now, if you look at ayah 42, it says he is in the prison for bid'a sinin. Now, if you remember, we haven't done bid'a sinin, but we will do bid'a sinin in Surah Al-Isra, which is Surah number 17. Okay? Bid'a sinin means between 7 and 10 years. So can you imagine being in that prison for 7 to 10 years? Okay? So he's there. Now, he's getting really, really tired. So he does that well dua. Do you know the dua in the well? He does that well dua after 7 years. And Jibreel says, Allah has tested you and your dad a lot. Do you want to come out of here? And Allah wishes to deliver you. So ask like this. Ask through Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So Yusuf raises his hands. Please remember this. He says, Allahumma inni as'aluka bihaqi Muhammad wa Ali wa Fatima wa Hassan wa Hussein. That's why we teach our children. I went through it last week. Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali, Ya Fatima, Ya Hassan, Ya Hussein. Waj'al li min amri farajan wa makhrajan, which is in your du'as of the well. And he says, free me from the predicament I'm in. And Jibreel tells him, you will be freed in 3 days. Within those 3 days, the king has a dream. And that's how I think you've got the thing in there, right? So you've got the dream of the king, which is in ayah 43. The king sees 7 thin cows eating 7 fat cows, and he sees 7 green stalks of wheat and 7 dry stalks of wheat. Right? And nobody can figure out what that dream is. At that time, a switch goes on into that cupbearer. You know the guy who was freed? And he thinks, oh my God, I better go to Yusuf. So he goes to Yusuf, he goes to prison, he goes to Yusuf, and he says, this is the king's dream. And he says, it's very simple. For 7 years, Egypt is going to have good farming facilities, but for 7 years, there's going to be a drought. So he goes back to the king, and the king says, that makes so much sense. Bring Yusuf to me. Goes back to Yusuf. And by the way, it's all in the Qur'an. You can read all these stories. Ayah 50 says, king says, bring him to me. And he says, no, I'm not going to come. I'm not going to come until you clear my name. Call those women, and I want you to publicly say that you're going to clear my name. Okay, so he refuses that. The king calls all the women, including Zuleika. And Zuleika says, it wasn't my fault. I really, really love him. And I've been faithful to him all these years. And she says this, ayah 53. She says, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. I don't declare myself free. I couldn't help it. إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَعَمَّارَةً بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. It was that soul of mine, that nafsul ammara, that called me and made me do what I did. And he says, the only way that I will come out of this is if my Rabb has rahmah on me. Inna Rabbi ghafurur rahim. Allah is Ghafoor and Allah is Rahim. Now, you know what? You and I might think, okay, she said this, but he's been in prison for a long time, okay? But she says this, and this verse is used a lot. You can call it Nafsul Ammara. But in essence, she had a little bit of a spiritual awakening, okay? 1253. So she woke up a little bit. Now, what does he say? The king says, this is ayah 54, by the way, okay, now you're pardoned, I'm going to keep you to myself. I'm going to give you a secure job, and I'm going to give you security. Remember, the ministers are very corrupt. I'm going to give you lots of security. But he's thinking, I don't want to be a personal secretary. I have to be a bit assertive, because if I do not manage the wheat of this country, many, many people will die. Many children will die. So he tells the king, no personal, he puts his CV forward. So he says, Kalaj alni ala qada'in al-ard. Make me the CFO, make me the treasurer. Make me the treasurer of this place, and I have two things on my CV. Inni hafidhun alim. I am trustworthy and I know exactly what's going to happen. Are you good with that? Okay? So he's assertive. Now, this is not easy for Yusuf. Yusuf was a shy little boy, bullied by his brothers, sold into slavery, bullied by a woman, put into prison. But here, what gives him strength is his love of humanity. Okay? So if you and I are a bit shy, you know when to come out. Okay, 12:59. Okay? So what happens now? So let me tell you what Yusuf does, okay? He issues a mandate for all farmers to sell their surplus wheat to the king at market price. So anybody who has any surplus wheat will sell it to the king. Number two, that incentivizes the farmers to produce more. Because obviously if they produce more and they got a market price, they would sell it to the king. Number three, he constructed all these big granaries, these big warehouses, where he stored the wheat and he kept it there. And he held the monopoly to sell the wheat back to the public at a price where nobody could inflate it. Because normally it's supply and demand. I talked about it last week. If you need something, they will put the price up. So he took all their extra wheat. Are you good with that? Now, if you look at ayah 56 and 57, you probably know the ayah from Surah Rahman. I think it's ayah 60. Hal jaza'ul ihsan illal ihsan. So you see what's going to happen, okay? Now what happens? We're going to look at the first trip, which is ayah 58. So everybody comes now during the time of drought to buy food from the Egyptians, because they know there's a righteous CFO, a righteous treasurer. He won't cheat you and he will give you enough. Yaqub hears about him because Yaqub has the same problem. He lives in Canaan. So he tells his son, can you please go, because I hear Egypt has a righteous king, and can you please go and buy some food or get some food? So their currency was a trading currency. So they took frankincense. Do you know what frankincense is? You've heard about it in the three wise men. So they take frankincense and they go. So if you look at ayah 59, وَلَمَّا جَحَّزَهُمْ بِجَحَازِهِمْ قَالَ أَعْطُونِي بِأَخِي لَكُم مِّنْ أَبِيكُمْ أَلَا تَرَوْنِي أَنِّي أُوفِي الْكَيْلَ وَأَنَا خَيْرُ الْمُنزِلِينَ. So now what happens? He asks them, who are you? He knows who they are. They don't know who he is. We are the sons of Ibrahim and Ishaq and Yaqub. Our father, where's your father? Well, my father didn't come because he's so sad about the son that he lost who was eaten by a wolf. They still lie. This is Yusuf they're talking to. Okay? And we also have a small brother, young brother that lives with our father. Our father doesn't separate himself from him. Since Yusuf has gone, he hugs bin Yamin. So what does he tell them? Next time you come, you bring all the brothers. You bring Binyamin as well. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you any food. Okay, so that's ayah 59. That's Yusuf. Okay. All right. So what happens? When they are going back home, he instructs his people. And this Quran, by the way, it's really detailed. 59, 60, 61, 62. He tells his servants, not only should you give the wheat to them, but also their frankincense back. So when they get back to their dad, they say, oh my goodness, he was so amazing because he gave us back our money as well. But he said, next time we come, we cannot come until we take Binyamin with us. And what does his father say? He says, Hal amantum alayhi illa kama amintukum ala akhihi min qabl. I can't trust you. Just like I couldn't, because you saw what you did with Yusuf. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا. But Allah is the best one to trust. وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Are you good? Okay. So now what happens? Second trip. They run out of food. Second trip is ayah 68 and 69. 6 months later. You have 7 shirts and 3 trips. So second trips, when they take him, they take Binyamin with them. Yaqub allows it because there's no food. He calls Binyamin and he says, I am your brother. Can you see him? Ana akhuka fala tabtais bima kanu ya'malun. But don't be sad at what they have done to you. I know they bully you too, but don't worry at all. So ayah 69, Binyamin is, and he tells Binyamin, I can't keep you here until I accuse you of something. Until I'm able to detain you for a reason. So if you agree and you know what I'm going to do, then I will take the king's cup and I'll put it in your bag and then I can stop you and detain you. You good? Because lots of people ask, how could a prophet do that? Well, he had to do that to detain Binyamin. So he keeps Binyamin with him, okay? Now, as soon as he tells them that, look at what happens. As soon as he says that your brother stole the king's cup, they don't say no. They said, Kalu, in Yasrak, if he steals, فَقَدْ سَرَقَ أَخٌ لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. His brother before him stole as well. You see, these 2 brothers were really good. And Yaqub had a sister called Sarah. And Sarah used to love it when Yusuf and Binyamin went there because they'd help her do all the chores. But she couldn't tell Yaqub that I want these 2 sons. So what she did was she had a belt which belonged to Yaqub. So she told Yaqub that, can I have the belt to keep? And then when Yusuf wasn't watching, she slipped the belt into his bag. When he got home, she told Yaqub, the belt is missing. And he said, how can it be missing? And then they found it on Yusuf. He didn't know anything about it. Now she said, in our culture, when you steal something from someone, then they have to go work for you. So Yaqub could do nothing. Yusuf had to go and stay with her and work for her. So they are saying here, they go back to that incident. Can you see that? Nothing to do with us. Our brother stole before, they said. And that was really bad. But Yusuf didn't say a word to them, okay? So he keeps Binyamin. I know I have to stop, but one more. I have to stop. And one of the brothers says, I can't go back to my dad. I just can't. I can't show my dad my face because there's no way I will go back without Binyamin. First Yusuf and now Binyamin. So Ra'ubin or Reuben, Arabic it's Reuben, he doesn't go and he stays there. So next episode, next week, when we will finish Surah Yusuf, but basically you're at a stage where Reuben has stayed there. Binyamin knows that he is Yusuf's brother. They're in Egypt. And these brothers now don't know how they're going to face, oh God, this is like looking at a soap opera, isn't it? They don't know how they're going to face their father, okay? So we're going to go to 83, and 83 is very similar to 18. Are you good with that? Next week, I know it is the wafat of Muslim ibn Aqil, if I'm not mistaken. But Yasmin, can we just finish this? Yes, so we're going to finish this. And we'll finish Surah Yusuf, and then inshallah we'll continue after the month of Muharram. Are you good? I love the next episode. Okay, can we have a salawat, please? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.